too. Great. So, also, I'm very excited that there is an Identity Management Day. When that email came out from IDSA, I was very excited because we're launching a whole of awareness communication campaign, and this is perfect timing for being able to get this out. So I had one of our cyber awareness people help get a post on Yammer, an internet article going out. So this has been really helpful. Probably not too late to at least post on your company social media page about this and chuck in one of the links and one of these very scary stats. So, do I have slides?
You do, and I should have mentioned you've got a clicker as
Oh,
well.
I do.
So we can jump through to your slides.
Thank you.
Oh,
so
jeez.
I will also
Speaker
mention...
guys, can we jump straight to Sue's slides? Guys on the computer at the back. Otherwise, I'll just keep clicking and clicking.
So I'll also mention that in the past 4 years, I've done a lot of presentations, but they've all been virtual. And that's been great, except for one. So this is my second in-person one. So thank you. Green button?
Green button.
Awesome. So my topic is how to IAM when you're not a big bank. So my last job was 4 years at NAB. I'm now at UniSuper, we're a superannuation company. I joined just after all of the Royal Commission and the changes to the superannuation industry. So there was a lot of change coming to UniSuper. There was a lot of immaturity, a lot of lack of awareness or understanding of the importance. So first I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the lands of the Wurundjeri people on Naarm, and I'd like to thank them and also pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. Green button. So if you're a small to medium enterprise, then your lean, your mean and security may not be your first priority. Big banks have big budgets and lots of people. But they're also heavily regulated and they rely on their customers feeling safe and are very complex. Small to medium enterprises have to run lean with people and with money. But they also have, or tend to have, lower turnover, simple technology landscapes, and may not be as heavily regulated. Although we're finding that this is changing a lot, and changes to privacy laws and fines coming out is going to change that landscape a bit. But so you can see that while the big banks may have a lot of advantages, they've also got a lot of weaknesses, and you as a small to medium enterprise have a lot of strengths or advantages that you should play to. Okay, because you're different, your benefits are going to be different. So all the vendors and the Gartner papers are going to go on about all the advantages you're going to have about implementing an identity and access management program or initiatives. But you'll find that some of these may not apply to you, or may not apply to the same scale. So be honest with yourself about what these benefits are for your organisation. For example, automation. You hear a lot about automating onboarding and offboarding. It's going to save you tons of time. But if you are a small organisation with low complexity in your technology, you're not going to have a lot of turnover, potentially, people leaving and coming. And granting access to people to a very small handful of systems may not actually take that much time, as opposed to if you're a big bank and you've got hundreds, thousands of systems and high turnover. You may not also get quality improvements, which is another thing that's often talked about, where you might have a couple of people who do onboarding tasks day in, day out. They know the systems very well. They don't have a lot to work with anyway, so by turning your onboarding and offboarding lifecycle journey into an automated one, you might not see improvements there as well. But you will get the ability to scale. So I don't know about your organisations, but our organisation definitely has a company goal to grow. So rapidly scale is something that you can sell to your execs. You'll be able to better protect against insider and external threats. That promotion is actually real. And the auditors will be happier. So, green button. If you have a small team, or you may not even have a team at all, then you can't do everything by yourself. So look at decentralizing your operating model. I went to Gartner a couple of weeks ago, and this was a big theme about security being an enabler, not necessarily being a doer. So you enable people within your organization to do the security, do the identity management. You also want to work on your risk and security culture. So again, a lot of smaller organizations might still be in their early stages of this journey because you've come from a more less regulated history. People don't jump up and down or get scared and run out the door when they hear the word auditor or GS007. Anyone knows that? Find your allies. So we're talking about your risk teams, your privacy teams, fin crime, even your infrastructure operations team could be really strong allies to help get change, controls, take responsibility for certain parts of the identity access management landscape. And lastly, obviously, outsource it. But make sure you have really strong involvement from someone that really knows your organization and what's best for your organization, how your organization is structured, what your systems are. And with the outsourcing, you want to go for a long-term partnership with the vendor, because then they're going to build their knowledge about how your organization works, and you can often find partnerships that are also invested in helping you improve, because then they can put you as a customer reference. So don't try and do everything yourself, but maybe don't try and do everything at all. High-end projects can be very expensive and they can take a long time. Anyone who's been part of one should be able to relate to that, no matter what the vendors say to you. Not just a couple of clicks of buttons. Who's going to operate the capability and the controls? You need to have people to actually take it through after the project. So don't get project and tool happy if you don't have anyone to receive it on the other end. And on that note, what capabilities and controls do you really need? So do an assessment with an external party, have a chat to your auditors about what controls they want you to have, what they want to see, and talk to your peers. So these sorts of events are really great opportunities to network and meet peers, chat to them about what they're doing, what they wish they didn't do, and what do you already have and do well. So I was telling someone earlier about if you have ServiceNow, a really good ServiceNow team, maybe you want to invest in ServiceNow to do a lot of your identity access management. Maybe that's all you need, but it depends on your needs as an organization. That won't apply to everybody. Keep it simple, don't try and put in all of the tools. A lot of vendors are starting to play in everyone else's spaces. So you can find CyberArk and access management system, Okta doing IGA. There's all sorts of players out there that could potentially meet your needs as a simpler landscape. They won't meet the needs of a big bank. The big banks will probably always have to get your top quadrant Gartner players, best in breed. But if you're not a big bank, you may not need that. The obvious one is also Microsoft. Microsoft do pretty much everything, maybe not that well, but that might be enough for you. And if you're already a Microsoft shop, that's probably makes sense. Do we have a Microsoft person in the house?
Okay, the Microsoft person.
I'll be accepting bribes, that's true. So I'm keeping it to 20 minutes, or under, well under, okay?
You're well under. You said 9 minutes.
Oh, it's a bit short. So I'll give you time for the bar if you want to top up the drinks. But does anyone have any questions or their own observations, their own experiences?
So I have a question. UniSuper, clearly superannuation, information, PI data, so on and so forth. So even though you talk about it being like a smaller, medium-sized company, big bang, that's just kind of surely the amount of personal identifiable data and stuff that you have is highly relevant to potentially identity theft and
100%. And I should have prefaced this with, this doesn't all necessarily apply to our organisation and my journey, just things I've noticed along the way that maybe we didn't have to invest this much or build such a complex solution over here. Maybe if we had simpler requirements, or if the vendors had been further along their roadmaps, we would have been able to pick one vendor to do a lot of things. But we still have all of the requirements for controls. GS007 is kicking off next week. So we definitely are heavily regulated now. One of the things we pushed uphill against was that we weren't. It wasn't that long ago that we weren't as heavily regulated. So that change in culture and awareness was something we had to push against. I think we're there now. So one of the things I also talked about was that decentralized operating model. Getting the right accountability is also important. So putting the accountability on the line managers, on the staff themselves, or application owners, data owners, having that right structure in place in terms of accountability is really important, and definitely goes towards the data protection side of things. But we're probably in a space where we still have to have a lot of controls. It's just when it comes to complexity of the tools, because our technology is not necessarily so complex, the tools might not have to be that complex, but the controls still have to be in place.
So we just say, going back to your industry, the superannuation industry, talking about scale, you see it as a special challenge that you might have with potential mergers under the superannuation industry that scale, I guess, take you by surprise and very quickly. Is that like a challenge?
We went through our merger in November, I think it was. So yes, 100%. Especially with the recent rating of all the superannuation companies, and a lot of them didn't get axed because they weren't performing, and they were forced to merge with other companies. So I think in Super there was a lot of merging and acquisitions happening. For us, it was a very simple merger because it was basically take on extra people into our organisation rather than taking two organisations and mesh everything together, including technology. So it was a much simpler journey for us. They weren't that big either, so it wasn't that big a jump. But there was a lot of scrambling around trying to onboard new starters in a very short time frame. It went medium well. Definitely some lessons learned in that. We did have a go at role modelling, but it wasn't on the highest priority list for the business. So I think if we'd been able to get ahead of that a bit better and understand the needs of the new staff coming on board into the different teams, that would have really smoothed out our role onboarding and their onboarding journey. I think you need to prioritise, and it's anyone who does agile kind of development, you have your backlog and you'll prioritize things that are the most important at the time. So it might not be that it's not on your list, it might sit in the backlog for a long time, and eventually you might decide that it's important enough to do right now, your organization's advanced to the right stage. Maybe the vendors give you a license for free or something like that. Although I should say that's not a good reason to put in a control just for the sake of it, because we did that as well. Lessons learned. And you'll need to be clear about why you're prioritizing. So have your drivers have some sort of prioritization for us. And I'm really turning my back on you guys over on this side. Have things like, is it addressing threats? Is it addressing pain points in the organization? Does it align to your company strategy? Yeah, those are probably the main three things. Are there compliance reasons that you have to do it? Otherwise you get shut down.
That question was really insightful. I've got a small organisation, UniSuper, like you spoke about, addressing a lot of workforce use cases or employee use cases. How do you go about tackling your customers?
Maybe I should ask Adrian this.
Please, Sue, you're much better than an answer.
IdentityXP is actually helping us with our customer identity journey. Customer identity has been a bit of a weird one for us, and this was probably the case at NAB as well. It's, in terms of ownership, it kind of sits in this weird space between digital and security. And it's definitely a priority for us, but a lot of it's driven out of digital with the security overlay. There's a lot of push also from FinCrime. So there's a lot of different parties that are interested in customer identity, and that's why I mentioned the Find Your Allies, because they can really bolster your business case and help drive things forward. And you'll also be doing things for the right reasons, because you've got their requirements. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. It's really just how you manage that relationship.
More quickly. I mean, it's definitely a big deal these days, and it's getting to be an easier conversation because customers are finding security is a service now. Thank you, Elon Musk, for charging for MFA. So customers expect to see a level of security, and something I say is that identity and access management, we're lucky to be probably the most obvious part of security. Like, it's the part of security that gets shoved in your face when you're logging in, when you're MFAing, when you're being asked to make a password policy. All of those things are single sign-on. When you talk to non-IT or non-security people, they understand most of these things because they're having to deal with it in their everyday life. So we've got a much easier job than some other security professionals.
Perfectly on time. With 42 seconds to go, Sue.